streets after Hamas announced it accepted an Egyptian-Qatari ceasefire proposal. But for now, the war rages on. Israeli leaders approved a military operation into Rafah, and Israeli strikes were reported in the eastern part of Rafah. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office says the proposal was far from Israel's demands, but would send negotiators to continue ceasefire talks. President Biden continues to warn against an offensive on Rafah. A witness testimony resumed Monday in Donald Trump's hush money criminal trial in New York. An accountant for the Trump Organization told jurors she helped arrange for Michael Cohen to be reimbursed for the alleged hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels.
Anybody in there would realize there's no case. They don't have a case. Every legal scholar says they don't have a case. This is just a political witch hunt.
Texas governor says at least 3 storm-related deaths have been reported. The last 5 days dumped more than 20 inches of rain in some parts of the state.
It has been heart-wrenching to see our fellow Texans be literally inundated with record waterfall.
Those are headlines. Here's your weather on the ones.
Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Santos. A very active weather pattern to start, especially around the south central plains. Monday night, Tuesday morning, we see it coming through places like St. Louis, Missouri, and then eventually pushing up into the Midwest and the Northeast for the rest of the day on Tuesday. Temperatures for Tuesday morning, 50s and 60s, even 70s to start. During the day, 70s, 80s, and 90s in the south, but we've got a cool down gradually coming because of cooler air to the north coming.
Joining us, I'm Sharon Tazwell. Major developments tonight in the Middle East. Israel has begun striking targets in Rafah. The city in Gaza is home to more than 1 million Palestinian refugees. The attacks coming just hours after Hamas agreed to a ceasefire proposed by Egypt and Qatar. We have team coverage breaking down the latest developments, including a grave warning from the United Nations saying northern Gaza has entered full-blown famine. Spectrum's Evan Kozloff kicks us off from Washington.
After 7 months of war, a leader of Hamas announced Monday that the group will accept a ceasefire proposed by Egypt and Qatar.
The declaration prompting celebrations across Gaza, including this one outside of the Al-Aqsa hospital. But despite the optimism, there are questions about what's in this proposed deal and how Israel will respond. The office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying on Monday afternoon that the proposal Hamas has accepted was, quote, far from Israel's essential demands, but that they'd send negotiators to continue talks on the deal.
We are at a critical stage right now.
Speaking from the White House, National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby says CIA Director William Burns is in the Middle East right now, working on ceasefire negotiations.
All I know is we've got a response. Bill Burns is looking at that response. He's talking to the Israelis about it, and we'll see where this goes. Hopefully, whatever's in this thing, hopefully it can lead to those hostages getting out.
One proposal from last week would tie the release of 20 to 33 Israelis held hostage in Gaza to a temporary ceasefire and the release of Palestinian prisoners. But as of Monday afternoon, Kirby was unable to confirm whether it was this deal accepted by Hamas.
We want to get these hostages out. We want to get a ceasefire in place for 6 weeks. We want to increase humanitarian assistance. And the last thing that I want to do is say anything at this podium that's going to put that process at risk.
In Washington, I'm Evan Kozloff, Spectrum News.
Meantime, humanitarian concerns continue to grow in Gaza. The United Nations sending a grave warning over the weekend, saying parts of the enclave are now in famine. Spectrum's Daniel Grimes continues our team coverage.
Israel's military on Monday told 110,000 people in the Gaza city of Rafah to seek refuge in a nearby humanitarian zone, a sign that Israel is preparing a ground offensive to root out Hamas fighters there.
There's at least 1 million, perhaps 1.4 million people in Rafah, almost half of whom are children. And any kind of operation here would have catastrophic circumstances for them.
This as months of warnings about a potential famine in northern Gaza allegedly have become a reality. Nonprofit organizations have been pushing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to allow for more aid into Gaza. Although the United Nations has not formally declared a famine in Gaza, Cindy McCain, the head of the World Food Program, says conditions on the ground are dire, with famine conditions in the north spreading south.
We need to make sure that the world understands we can't let this happen. It in this day and age, when the world has the ability to feed itself 10 times over, nobody should starve.
The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry reported last month that at least 28 children have died as a result of malnutrition and dehydration since February. Aid organizations warn people do not have access to clean drinking water, and access to adequate health care is also dismal. The World Health Organization reports of the 36 hospitals that used to serve Gaza, only 10 remain somewhat functional. The Biden administration acknowledges there is a crisis.
It is not a great situation, clearly, and that's why, again, we're working so hard to get this deal in place so we can keep that humanitarian assistance up at a higher level.
Spectrum's Daniel Grimes joins us now from Washington. Daniel, the war in Gaza having a powerful impact here at home, and protests continue at universities across the country. And now, word of another college graduation ceremony cancellation.
Yes, we saw protests at the University of Michigan graduation over the weekend, and now Columbia University announced it is canceling its university-wide commencement ceremony originally set for May 15th. I should note many of those students missed their high school graduations due to the pandemic. Now the school will still hold school-level ceremonies, mostly off the main campus where we've seen these protests take place. House Speaker Mike Johnson is now blasting the university's president, Manoush Shafiq, saying that she has ceded control to Hamas supporters and called for her to resign, Sharon.
All right, Daniel Grimes in Washington, thanks. Witness testimony in Donald Trump's New York hush money trial has concluded for the day. Two longtime Trump Organization employees walked jurors through financial documents at the heart of the case. Deborah Tarasoff, who worked in the accounting department, explained how checks were cut to Cohen in 2017. She also testified that invoices over $10,000 had to be approved by Trump or one of his sons. Earlier in the day, former executive Jeffrey McConey testified about how Cohen's payments were listed in Trump's financial documents. Prosecutors say they need roughly 2 more weeks to make their case.
The government just said that they want 2 to 3 more weeks. That means they want to keep me off the trail for 2 to 3 more weeks. This is really, truly election interference, and it's a disgrace.
The judge overseeing the case also ruled Monday that Trump again violated his gag order for his comments about the jury. He threatened the former president to jail if he continues to violate it. Just ahead on Spectrum News, search and rescue efforts continue in Texas after deadly flooding. And it's not over yet. More severe weather expected this week.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
At Spectrum, we know how much you depend on the reliability of our products and services. Now, we've taken a new step forward in reliability by identifying potential service issues before they become a problem. If you're affected, we'll contact you and help schedule a free service appointment with one of our expert technicians. The proactive maintenance of our network is one of the many reasons Spectrum delivers the most reliable keeping you connected.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents...
Disturbances continue to come from out west. Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Santos. There was a storm that came across over the weekend out west and included Southern California out there with some strong winds. So you can see all the storm reports there, many of it related to strong winds, gusty conditions, even forcing the cancellation of Beach Life Festival, at least the third night, the last few hours of the third night there in Redondo Beach in Southern California. Now, in terms of winter weather, yes, we had it all across from the Rockies to the Sierra Nevada and up in the Cascades. In terms of tornadoes and funnel clouds, just a couple. So fairly quiet for Sunday, but then we are starting off Central Plains Monday night, that severe weather threat, and it's a moderate to high threat. And then Tuesday morning, you could see it coming across Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois. Here's a closer look, and we'll see the timing of this. We go to about Monday 11. Look at Kansas City, Omaha, that squall line coming through. St. Louis there, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Springfield. Once we get to about Tuesday, 11 o'clock, you can see some of that moving into the Midwest. Even Syracuse there, perhaps Wednesday morning, you'll get some storms coming there too. And then eventually we'll be watching what's coming through Wednesday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So Wednesday afternoon, promises if this does come to fruition to be once again a busy afternoon coming through places like Kentucky and Tennessee. So we're going to continue to watch this throughout the week. Now we look out west, we see this disturbance bringing scattered snow showers and rain showers, but the good news is we don't see any disturbances coming across Washington end of the week. Now let's take a look at one city here, Minneapolis. We've got rain for you Tuesday with low 70s, drier Wednesday and Thursday. Let's go to Cincinnati, Ohio. 80s for a couple of days, drier on Wednesday. Thursday, we see 70s with some rain in the forecast as well.
Devastating flooding in Texas has turned deadly, claiming at least 3 lives. Search and rescue teams continue to patrol neighborhoods. Spectrum News anchor Carla Redditt reporting tonight on the historic floods rushing through the state.
With swollen rivers still rushing, the rescues keep going.
We're at close to 400 rescues.
It was a busy weekend. That continues for first responders across flood-ravaged portions of East Texas.
We've definitely had a lot of water in my life I've never seen.
Despite the rain easing in the state Monday, unrelenting storms over the past 5 days have dumped over 10 inches of water in some areas between Dallas and Houston. That has some rivers surging past levels not seen since the Category 4 Hurricane Harvey made landfall in Houston in 2017. The fierce current, just one challenge facing rescue teams.
You don't know what's in the water, whether it's ants, whether it's snakes, whether it's spiders.
When you have these flash flooding events, many times, unfortunately, they catch people off guard.
In several cases, people handing over pets before they get in the boat.
They know that their pets are like family members to them.
Where waters have started to recede, the new struggle for many is revealed.
We don't know, what's next, what should we tackle?
We are an island.
Clifton police used a social media live stream Sunday, warning major concern.
Heed those warnings, get out and turn around, don't drown.
The National Weather Service reports several dozen river gauges are still at some level of flooding, from minor to major. Carla Redditt, Spectrum News.
Authorities in Pennsylvania say a man who tried to shoot a pastor during a church service was unsuccessful when his gun did not fire and was tackled by a congregant. The service was live streamed. We want to warn you, it could be disturbing. You can see here 26-year-old Barnard Polites pointing a gun at the pastor delivering a sermon. He claimed God told him to do it. Well, after the gun jammed, a man tackled Polite to the ground and held him there until police arrived. Polite faces aggravated assault and attempted homicide charges. A body was later found in Polite's home. Senator Bernie Sanders is running for re-election. The 82-year-old made the announcement in a video Monday, if re-elected, saying that, quote, in many ways, this 2024 election is the most consequential election in our lifetimes. The Vermont Independent, who's going for a 4th term, is the current chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. The American Academy of Dermatology says everyone should get regular skin checks regardless of skin tones. But melanoma can be tricky because it can be present in places that aren't exposed to the sun. Spectrum's Kimberly Perez shares a story of a man shocked to learn he had it.
I'm kind of a poster child for all of the adverse effects.
Rabbi Robert Nosenchuk was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma in 2019, a month before his daughter's bat mitzvah, a coming-of-age celebration in Judaism.
I'm not a person who is constantly in the sun.
Melanoma is often thought of as a result of sun exposure, but Chuck had always been vigilant about getting regular skin checks, but it was discovered when he had pain unrelated to the cancer.
By the time we discovered I had melanoma, it was already metastasizing to my abdomen.
Dr. Takyo Trong is an oncologist with the Cleveland Clinic. She says people can get melanoma without extensive sun exposure.
People who get melanomas unrelated to sun exposure, like on their mucosa, like along the lining of their gut or their mouth or their eyes.
Trunk says what makes melanoma potentially deadly is that it has the ability to travel.
It can be very thin and early and tiny on your skin, but it can quickly travel somewhere else, including your lungs or your brain.
It's not just people with fair skin that need to be vigilant.
People who are dark-skinned tend to get them in areas that are unrelated to the sun, like on their feet.
Nosenchuk was treated with immunotherapy, which uses your own body's immunosystem to fight. Says the side effects from the treatment have affected his thyroid, adrenal glands, colon, his executive function, among many other things.
I used to be a person who read 30 plus books a year, and honestly, I haven't read a book in 5 years because I have a harder time making it through.
But he says he wouldn't trade any of it.
I'm really grateful to be alive to experience any of it.
3 days after starting treatment, Nosenchuk attended his daughter's celebration. Despite running a fever of 104 and ending up in the hospital by the end of the night,
It was one of the best days of my life.
Kimberly Perez, Spectrum News.
Just ahead on Spectrum News, a piece of history in Wisconsin. What is it? And what the couple who found it have to say.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
People who live in the South and Central Plains should be on a weather alert overnight. Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Santos. Especially Monday night, the Storm Prediction Center calling for a moderate to high severe weather outlook for a big portion of Oklahoma and parts of Kansas. Now, even predicting the possibility of some hail the size of softball. So we're talking about 4 inches in diameter. Now, as we go into Tuesday, this is where the severe weather outlook is. It's going to be enhanced right around portions of Indiana and Ohio. Otherwise, a slight severe weather outlook for the portions in yellow, and then a marginal outlook for the areas there in green. So far, severe storms and again, damaging winds and some large hail. Now, here's a travel forecast for Milwaukee. We've got rain in the forecast, Louisville, some thunderstorms as well. Dry in the meantime for Cleveland, New York, and Tampa. New York, pretty mild to warm there, depending on what you're doing outdoors. Salt Lake City, some rain with 40s, and Denver, very windy as that storm that basically pushed across the west is now making its way across the rest of the country. And because of that, some very cold air in places like Salt Lake City for Tuesday, still about 20 degrees below average. The areas in yellow showing where it's warmer than average. That includes Columbus and New York and even Boston. So the numbers there, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Notice St. Louis 80s. Same thing for Las Vegas and Phoenix, but Salt Lake City at 48 degrees. Now watch how the temperatures change. We go into Wednesday. Some cooler air begins to slowly make its way across the area here. So by Thursday, now we're into the low Louis and Columbus. Come Friday, cooler air continues to move to the east and the south. So now Columbus down into the low 60s, and Saturday comfortable now in these areas that for much of the week will be pretty warm in the 80s there. Here's another way to look at it. We'll look at the 7 days average temperature, 74 degrees here in St. Louis, Missouri. A couple of days above average, and then we'll
The countdown begins. Tonight, Boeing will launch astronauts to the International Space Station in the first mission with a crew inside. The Boeing Starliner is set to take off from Cape Canaveral, Florida, just after 10:30 p.m. Eastern. 2 NASA astronauts will man the new spacecraft. Astronauts on the space station have made room for their arrival, moving a capsule so the Starliner can dock early Wednesday. Well, the stars are out tonight in New York City. The 2024 Met Gala is underway at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And this year's theme celebrates the Institute's new exhibition, Sleeping Beauties, Reawakened Fashion. Well, joining me on the ground there, Spectrum's Shannon Ferry. Shannon, you along with many fans are hoping for a glimpse of great fashion.
Yeah, and Sharon, I have to tell you, they are getting a pretty good glimpse. Despite the fact that they are behind the barricades here, we are in front of the Met. I'll give you a look. I mean, a lot of these people have been lining up since early this morning, early this afternoon, in hopes of seeing some of those stars, and they certainly have. We saw Zendaya, we saw J-Lo go up the stairs. And again, as you said, Sleeping Beauty's Reawakening Fashion is the theme. Garden in time is the dress code. So while a lot of, the focus has obviously been on the spectacle going on the stairs, there is a lot going on over here too. People making friends with each other, people bringing snacks, you name it.
Shannon, what's the buzz from the crowd? You mentioned J-Lo's already gone through. Who else are people hoping to see?
I mean, everybody wants to see Rihanna. That's what we keep hearing. But famously, she always comes late, Sharon. Last year, I think she came 10 or 11 o'clock. And keep in mind, these arrivals start around 5 o'clock. So they are committed to staying here until the last guest comes. That's the one I've been hearing the most, Sharon.
Well, fashionably late. I think that's the correct way to say it for this. All right, Shannon Ferry in New York City. Thanks so much.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Thanks.
Thank you.
A meteorite found in Wisconsin 15 years ago this month is now on display at UW-Madison's Geology Museum. It is the largest iron meteorite classified in the U.S. since 1981. Natalie Sapila spoke to the couple who found piece of history on their farm.
Jim Cook has spent his life raising dairy cattle and horses here on his family farm in rural Dane County. He and his wife Jan also grow some crops.
Before you put the seeding down, you go out and pick the stones that have come to the surface so that you don't have them affect the alfalfa crop.
Back in May of 2009, while out picking stones, Jim found a huge one and knew it was different. Jan couldn't believe it.
At 109.5 pounds, it gets your attention. If you had found little pieces of something, it would have escaped detection or whatever, but this one is hard to miss.
They took the huge rock to a family member who is a scientist that works with rocks and metals. A sample of it was tested and confirmed it didn't originate on Earth. Then they sent the sample to the Chicago Field Museum, which officially confirmed it's a meteorite. But when they reached out to some museums across the Midwest, no one responded.
We thought, okay, this is the one, this is going to be the one where somebody gets excited about it or whatever, and it didn't happen.
So the meteorite sat in their garage for 14 years until the couple decided to reach out to the Geology Museum at UW-Madison. Carrie Eaton is the museum curator.
We were, of course, very excited, and we were out at the farm. I think within a week, we went and visited Jim and Jan and started working with them immediately on what they wanted to do with their amazing find.
Eaton and her colleagues have been working on getting the meteorite classified, which is a detailed process involving scientists and experts. She says you can learn a lot just from the rock's surface.
So as this meteor was hurtling toward Earth, it was melting. That surface was melting, and ripples of molten metal were cascading across its surface. Right as that meteor slows down, the temperature drops enough that it stops melting and all of those features are frozen in place.
The meteorite will eventually have its own permanent exhibit in the museum. Jim and Jan could have sold it to a dealer for a much higher price, but they wanted it to remain near where it was found and serve an educational purpose.
We don't want this to be on somebody's mantle. It should be in the museum where people can analyze it, enjoy it, and discover it.
Discovering a little piece of the solar system in their own backyard and sharing it with others as a learning opportunity. In Madison, Natalie Sapila, Spectrum News.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News at Night is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecasts. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories, connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country.
Today, I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.